The rain had started before dusk, and by the time Detective Sarah Mitchell arrived at Harvard Square, the campus looked like something out of a Gothic painting. Street lamps cast pale halos through the drizzle, cobblestones glistened, and the spires of Memorial Church disappeared into the low, brooding clouds. Students hurried across the yard with hoods pulled tight, backpacks shielding their heads, their footsteps quick against the wet pavement. But none of them seemed to notice the abandoned Volvo sedan parked awkwardly at the edge of the faculty lot. Its driver, side door was unlocked, and on the leather seat, faint brown, red stains had bloomed like dying roses. Sarah crouched beside the car, the beam of her flashlight cutting across the upholstery. Blood, she muttered, more to herself than to the uniformed officer beside her. The coppery tang still lingered faintly in the damp evening air. The officer shifted uneasily. Belongs to Dr. Alan Reeves, tenured professor, Department of Criminology. Sarah knew the name well. Reeves wasn't just a professor. He was something of a minor celebrity in Boston's academic circles. Author of Patterns of Violence, a frequent guest on crime podcasts, and the kind of man whose opinion was sought whenever a jury pool needed a nudge toward fear or fascination. At 57, he still carried himself with the sharp poise of a man who had studied killers long enough to adopt their mannerisms. Controlled, observant, deliberate, and now apparently vanished, who reported him missing, Sarah asked, stepping back from the car. Rain dotted her trench coat, dripping from her hairline. Teaching assistant, the officer replied. Said he never showed for his evening lecture. Not like him. They came looking, found the car, called campus security. Sarah nodded, eyes narrowing. Professors forgot things, sure, but they didn't usually leave streaks of blood in their cars and disappear. She pushed open the door, careful not to smear the stains. Something caught her eye on the passenger side floor mat, a small USB drive half tucked beneath the seat. She picked it up with a gloved hand, pocketing it silently. Her phone buzzed. Captain Morales's voice rasped in her ear before she could say hello. Mitchell, this is high profile. Keep it quiet. The press gets wind of a Harvard professor vanishing with blood in his car. We'll have a circus. Sarah's jaw tightened. She could already picture the headlines. Criminology expert becomes crime victim. Understood, she said, but if this blood matches Reeves, then it's a homicide or something close. Just thread carefully. Morales hung up before she could argue. Sarah crossed the yard, her boots splashing through shallow puddles. The drizzle had thinned into a mist, making the lantern. Lit windows of the old brick buildings glow like watchful eyes. She found herself in front of Emerson Hall, the building where Reeves usually lectured. Inside, the lecture hall was dim and hollow, the scent of chalk dust and damp wool lingering. A projector still glowed faintly on the screen at the front. She walked closer and realized it was paused on the last frame of Reeves's PowerPoint presentation. The title read, Unsolved Patterns, The Echo Murders, Case Study #17. Her stomach tightened. She knew the phrase Echo Murders, a series of killings stretching across New England, never solved. Victims had no clear link to one another, but the killer left behind the same calling card, a shell casing polished to mirror brightness, placed in the victim's palm like a token. Case #17 had been the last in the series, 2 years ago in Providence. After that, nothing. The trail had gone cold. Beneath the slide, faint chalk notes were still scrawled across the blackboard. Sometimes the killer is already in the room. Sarah frowned. It wasn't Reeves's usual lecture style. He was methodical, careful. This sounded personal, almost like a warning. As she turned to leave, a voice startled her. Detective. A young man stood at the doorway, damp curls plastered to his forehead. He looked about 20, a student, jeans, hoodie, and a nervous energy radiating off him. I'm Jacob, he said quickly, Professor Reeves's grad assistant. Sarah studied him, noting the dark circles under his eyes, the jitter in his hands. You're the one who reported him missing. Jacob nodded. He never skips lectures. Tonight he seemed off. He told me before class that someone had been following him. I thought he was joking, but then his voice caught. Then he said, if anything happens to me, check the lecture recording. Sarah felt a chill prickle at her neck. Where's the recording? Jacob pulled out his phone, fumbling with the screen. It uploads to the department server, but when I went to check an hour ago, the file was gone. Convenient. Too convenient. Who has access to that server? Sarah pressed. Faculty, mostly, admins, but... Jacob hesitated. Professor Reeves said his research was making enemies. I thought he meant rival academics. Now I'm not so sure. Sarah's hand brushed against the pocket where the USB drive sat. She didn't tell Jacob about it, not yet. By the time Sarah left campus, the mist had thickened into fog, curling around the old lampposts like smoke. Her mind churned with details, the blood, the cryptic lecture notes, the missing recording. She unlocked her car and slid inside, shaking rain from her sleeves. For a moment she simply sat, listening to the muted drum of rain on the roof. Then she pulled out the USB drive, small, black, unmarked. She inserted it into her laptop, the screen's glow casting sharp shadows across the car interior. A single folder appeared, name Echo 17. Her pulse quickened. She clicked. Inside were dozens of files, photos of crime scenes, police reports, newspaper clippings, all about the Echo murders. Victims' faces stared back at her, frozen in grainy snapshots, their eyes glazed, their palms turned upward where a casing should have been. But there was more. A final document encrypted, labeled simply, confession. Sarah tried to open it, password protected. Before she could attempt a guess, a sound made her freeze. The crunch of footsteps on wet gravel, just outside her car. She snapped the laptop shut, hand instinctively reaching for the Glock in her holster. Through the fogged window, she caught the blurred outline of a figure standing too close, unmoving, watching. By the time she flung the door open, the fog had swallowed him whole. Only the sound of fading footsteps remained, echoing into the mist. Morning light fell pale and cold over Boston, the kind that never seemed to chase the night away completely. Detective Sarah Mitchell parked in front of the Crimson. Brick buildings of Harvard once again, coffee steaming in her travel mug, exhaustion pulling at her shoulders. She had slept little. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw that fog-shrouded figure from the night before, standing silently beyond her car window. The USB drive burned in her thoughts. Echo 17. The case files were damning, exhaustive, and obsessive. Whoever compiled them had access to material well beyond a professor's reach. It wasn't just research, it was surveillance, and that encrypted file, confession. She needed a way in, but first, she needed context. Inside Emerson Hall, the corridors smelled faintly of varnished wood and old books. Sarah found herself in Reeves's office, escorted by a campus security officer who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. The office was exactly what she expected of a criminology professor. Shelves packed with case studies, framed photographs of conferences, a corkboard covered in red string and notes that looked straight out of a detective show. Reeves's handwriting, sharp, slanted, was everywhere, looping across index cards. Pinned at the center of the board, a large black and white photograph of a woman, maybe late 30s, with hollow eyes. Beneath it in red marker, victim #17 Providence 2021. Sarah leaned closer. A casing was visible in the woman's palm, glinting under crime. Scene floodlights. Reeves had underlined a phrase beneath the photo. The silence of the gun is louder than the crime itself. "What the hell were you chasing, Professor?" Sarah whispered. A knock pulled her from her thoughts. The door creaked open and Dr. Martha Klein, chair of the department, entered. A tall, severe woman in her 60s, Klein had the stiff posture of academia etched into her bones. "Detective Mitchell," Klein said, her tone clipped. "I heard you've taken charge of this incident. How serious is it?" "That depends," Sarah replied evenly. "How often do your faculty vanish with blood in their cars?" Klein's lips tightened. Dr. Reeves was eccentric, brilliant, yes, but eccentric. He became obsessed with his so-called echo murders. I warned him. Our department does not thrive on conspiracies. Conspiracies? Sarah asked. Klein gestured at the corkboard with a disdainful wave. That wall of madness. He believed the murders were connected, that they formed some sort of pattern, a hidden network of killers operating under our noses. Preposterous. Sarah arched an eyebrow. Is it because I've seen the files? They're thorough. Whoever killed those people left identical calling cards. Klein hesitated for a fraction of a second before regaining her composure. Patterns are dangerous, detective. People see what they want to see. Sarah studied her closely. Too defensive, too rehearsed. She made a note to dig into Klein later. Back in the corridor, Sarah spotted Jacob, the grad assistant from the night before. He looked worse than ever, eyes bloodshot, clutching a stack of papers like they were life preservers. Detective, he said, voice hushed. There's something you need to see. He led her down a back stairwell into the bowels of the building. The basement smelled of dust and mildew, pipes rattling overhead. Jacob unlocked a side room marked archives. Inside, rows of gray filing cabinets stretched wall to wall, each drawer labeled by year. Jacob pulled one open with a squeal of metal. Professor Reeves kept duplicates. Jacob whispered, rifling through folders. Every lecture, every case file he studied, he didn't trust the digital server, said too many eyes could alter things. He produced a thick folder, its cover marked with the same word as the USB drive, Echo 17. Sarah opened it carefully. Inside were printed photographs, photocopied police reports, and scrawled annotations in Reeves's hand. But something caught her attention. An attendance sheet from one of Reeves's recent lectures. Several names circled in red. Why would he mark these? Sarah asked. Jacob shifted nervously. He told me once. He believed his killer sat in his classroom, that one of his own students was connected to the network. Sarah felt the weight of the words. A killer hiding in plain sight, blending into academia's ivory tower. Later that afternoon, Sarah sat in the police forensics lab, staring at her laptop while the techs ran the blood from Reeves's Volvo. Folder lay open beside her, the circled names gnawing at her. One name stood out, Eleanor Ward, graduate student, bright, ambitious, with published papers on criminal psychology, papers Reeves had co-authored. Sarah remembered seeing Eleanor's name on the department website. Why circle her? Her phone buzzed again. It was Morales. You're digging too deep, Mitchell. He growled. Word from upstairs. Pull back. File this under missing persons until we get something solid. Sarah clenched her jaw. Captain, this isn't just a missing person. Reeves was close to something. His files'll burn them if you have to. I'm telling you, some doors don't need opening. The line went dead. That night, Sarah drove to Eleanor Ward's apartment in Cambridge, her instincts overriding orders. The building was a pre-war brownstone, ivy curling up its sides. Lights glowed faintly in one of the second-story windows. She buzzed the intercom. A few moments later, Eleanor appeared, slender, sharp, featured with intense green eyes. She looked startled to see a detective on her doorstep. Eleanor Ward. Sarah asked, Yes, is this about Dr. Reeves? I heard. Something happened. Can I come in? Inside, the apartment smelled of fresh coffee and old paper. Bookshelves dominated the walls, filled with titles on psychology, criminology, and behavioral analysis. Eleanor poured coffee into 2 mugs, her hands steady, too steady. Dr. Reeves was intense, Eleanor said carefully. He pushed us hard. He believed the Echo murders weren't random, that someone powerful was orchestrating them. Honestly, it scared me. He said if he disappeared, it would mean he was close to the truth. Sarah sipped her coffee, studying Eleanor's face. No flicker of guilt, no telltale tremor. But people lied better than they used to, especially those who studied human behavior for a living. Why do you think your name was circled in his notes? Sarah asked suddenly. For the first time, Elena froze. Her cup paused midair. A faint twitch crossed her lips. "What?" she said, circled. Sarah leaned forward. "Dr. Reeves suspected someone close. A student. You were on that list." Elena set the cup down carefully. Her green eyes locked onto Sarah's with unsettling calm. "Then I suppose," Elena said softly, "you'd better find out why." When Sarah left the apartment, night had fallen hard. The city hummed quietly in the distance, streetlights glowing like tired sentinels. She slid into her car, the Echo 17 folder heavy on the passenger seat. As she started the engine, her phone buzzed with a new email notification. No sender, no subject, just a single attachment. She opened it. A still image filled the screen, a grainy security camera photo of Professor Reeves, very much alive, standing in what looked like an abandoned warehouse, his eyes wide, his mouth gagged, a hand gripping his shoulder from behind. Beneath the image, 2 words glared in bold. Detective Sarah Mitchell stared at the grainy photo on her phone until the glow of the screen burned into her eyes. Professor Alan Reeves, alive, bound, gagged. Timestamp in the corner showed less than 12 hours old. Whoever had sent it knew exactly how to reach her, and they knew she wouldn't walk away. But something about the warning, "Stay away," felt less like intimidation and more like bait. A challenge. Sarah set her phone down on the passenger seat and pressed the heel of her hands against her eyes. She could almost hear Morales's voice barking in her ear, "Don't pursue it. Drop the case." But there was no dropping it. Reeves wasn't a cold case in a dusty folder. He was alive, which meant there was time and a trail. The next morning, Sarah sat in the evidence lab, waiting as the forensic tech tapped at his keyboard. The USB drive sat plugged into a secure computer. We cracked the encryption. The tech said finally, eyes flicking toward her, "But you're not gonna like it." He opened the file labeled confession. Lines of text scrolled down the screen, hand typed disjointed, but unmistakably written by Reeves himself. "If you're reading this, then I'm already gone. I uncovered what no one was meant to see. The Echo murders were not isolated crimes. They were signals, messages. Each victim was selected, not for who they were, but for what they represented. Judges, journalists, whistleblowers. Every killing was sanctioned by a network that thrives in the shadows." Sarah's throat went dry as she read. "I called it the silent gun. An invisible syndicate, older than any gang or cartel. Politicians feed it. Police protect it. And now, they're coming for me." The file ended abruptly, as if Reeves had been interrupted mid-thought. Sarah leaned back, pulse hammering. A conspiracy this size, if real, would explain Morales's sudden insistence on shutting her down. It would explain the missing lecture recording, the blood in Reeves's car, the watchful figure outside hers, but there was more. At the bottom of the document was a location scribbled in plain text: Quincy Shipyard, midnight. The manuscript is hidden where the echoes can't reach. By the time night fell, Sarah's nerves buzzed like live wires. The Quincy Shipyard had been abandoned for years, its dry docks rotting, warehouses boarded. Perfect place for secrets. She parked 2 blocks away, checked her Glock, and slipped through the rusted chain link fence. The air smelled of salt and rust, waves slapping hollowly against corroded pylons. Her flashlight beam cut through the darkness, revealing graffiti, smeared walls and broken pallets. Somewhere in the distance, a gull screeched. Inside one of the warehouses, the sound changed. Her footsteps echoed differently, bouncing off hollow space. She scanned the floor, the beam of light catching on something half, buried under a tarp, a locked trunk. Sarah knelt, tugging the tarp away. The lock was cheap, easy to snap with the crowbar she found leaning against the wall. The lid creaked open. Inside, beneath layers of dust and moth-eaten cloth, lay a stack of journals. Leather, bound, edges frayed, their pages swollen with ink and time. She flipped one open. The handwriting was Reeves's, dense and urgent. Case 12, Judge Henry Kessler, found with casing in hand. Official report ruled suicide, false, evidence suppressed by Boston PD captain, initials M.R. Sarah froze. M.R. Morales, her stomach twisted. Reeves wasn't paranoid. He was documenting a hidden purge. Each journal chronicled murders that had been quietly erased, rewritten as accidents, suicides, disappearances. Together, they formed a blood-soaked ledger of corruption, the blood manuscript. A sudden clang echoed through the warehouse. Sarah killed her flashlight, crouching behind the trunk. Footsteps, low, deliberate, approached from the far side. A silhouette crossed the broken windows, backlit by moonlight, tall, broad-shouldered. Sarah gripped her Glock, her breath shallow. Detective Mitchell. A man's voice called, deep and familiar. "You shouldn't be here." She recognized it instantly. Captain Morales. He stepped into the light, his badge glinting faintly on his belt. His gun was already drawn. "Put your weapon down," he ordered, voice cold. "This case is closed." Sarah's heart hammered. "You're part of it," she said, words sharp in the still air. "Reeves had proof, judges, journalists, even cops, and you covered it up." Morales's expression didn't flicker. "You think you've uncovered something new." Reeves was a fool. He thought he could publish the truth, but the silent gun doesn't tolerate loose ends. He raised his weapon a fraction higher, and neither do I. Sarah's finger tightened on her trigger. For a moment, the only sound was the drip of seawater through rusted beams. Then, another sound, a faint scuffle, deeper in the shadows. Both Sarah and Morales turned as a third figure emerged. Delina Ward, the graduate student. Her green eyes glittered strangely in the dim light. She held a gun of her own, silencer attached, pointed straight at Morales. "Enough," Elena said softly. "You've drawn too much attention, Captain." Sarah's stomach dropped. The student, Reeves, had circled her name for a reason. Morales barked a bitter laugh. "You, a pawn like you, thinks she's in control." Eleanor's lips curled into something between a smile and a snarl. "Not a pawn, a legacy." She pulled the trigger. The muffled shot cracked like a suppressed whisper. Morales staggered back, blood blooming on his chest, his gun clattering to the floor. He fell hard against the concrete, gasping once before going still. The silence after was heavier than the gunshot. Elena turned her gaze on Sarah, the silenced pistol steady in her hand. "You should have stayed away," she said. Sarah's pulse thundered. The blood manuscript lay open in the trunk beside her, its pages screaming with truth. Morales was dead, Reeves was captive, and Elena, the bright, ambitious student, wasn't just connected to the silent gun. She was part of it, but before Sarah could move, Elena lowered her weapon slightly, tilting her head with unnerving calm. "Doctor, Reeves was right," she murmured. "The killer was in the classroom all along." Her smile widened. "And now, detective, so are you." A Detective Sarah Mitchell stood frozen in the cavernous warehouse, the smell of rust and salt water thick in the air. Captain Morales lay dead at her feet, blood seeping into the cracked concrete. Across from her, Elena Ward held the silenced pistol like it belonged in her hand, calm, precise, unshaken. The grad student's voice was almost conversational. "You know, Detective, I used to sit in Reeves's lectures and wonder why he never saw me. He was so close, but blind. He thought he was hunting shadows, but the shadows were right there in the front row." Sarah kept her Glock raised, her finger steady on the trigger. "So you killed him?" she asked. Elena tilted her head. "Not yet. He's still useful. The silent gun doesn't waste assets without extracting their value." Her green eyes glittered. "But you, Detective, you're becoming a liability." Before Sarah could respond, a noise outside shattered the standoff. Tires screeching on gravel, doors slamming, heavy boots pounding against asphalt. Elena's smile didn't falter. "Company," she whispered. Floodlights flared through the broken windows, flooding the warehouse with harsh white light. Dark SUV skidded to a halt outside. Men in tactical gear poured in, rifles raised, their movements crisp and disciplined. Not police, not FBI. Private, shadow soldiers. Sarah dropped behind the trunk, heart hammering. Bullets tore through the air, ricocheting off rusted beams. Elena returned fire with surgical precision, dropping two of the masked men before melting into the shadows of the far side. Sarah clutched the blood manuscript to her chest. Reeves's journals weren't just paper, they were dynamite, enough to expose the silent gun if they reached the right hands, which made her the target now. She was no longer the hunter, she was prey. Sarah crawled low across the warehouse floor, ducking behind crates as bullets shredded the air above. She glimpsed Elinor moving like a phantom, slipping through the chaos, her silenced pistol spitting death with every squeeze. One of the gunmen spotted Sarah and swung his rifle. She fired first, the recoil jarring her arms, the man collapsing with a grunt. She sprinted toward the side exit, lungs burning. Outside, fog rolled in from the harbor, thick and blinding. Sirens wailed faintly somewhere in the distance, but no badge was coming to save her. She ducked behind a shipping container, catching her breath. The blood manuscript dug into her ribs beneath her coat. Every instinct screamed at her to ditch it, but she couldn't. Reeves had risked everything to compile it. People had died for it. Morales had died trying to silence it. She had to protect it, even if it killed her. A shadow detached from the fog. Sarah swung her Glock up, finger tightening weight. A hoarse voice hissed. It wasn't Elinor. It was Dr. Alan Reeves. He looked gaunt, bloodied, wrists raw from rope burns, but alive. His eyes darted frantically. Mitchell, you shouldn't be here. They'll kill you. Sarah's throat clenched. You're the reason I'm here. They'll kill us both. Reeves said, his voice breaking. Elinor, she's more than a student. She's a handler, raised by them. The silent gun isn't just a network detective. It's a family, generational. She's their heir. The words hit Sarah harder than a bullet. She set you up, Sarah realized. She's orchestrated all of this. Reeves whispered. Morales was just her puppet. They wanted you involved, wanted you chasing crumbs, and now they'll erase you. Gunfire cracked nearby, closer now. Reeves flinched, clutching Sarah's arm. You have the journals. Sarah nodded. Then you have a choice. Reeves said, his voice trembling with urgency. Run. And they'll hunt you forever, or fight. And you'll die tonight. A silenced shot whined past Sarah's ear, embedding in the steel container. She spun. Elinor stepped from the fog, calm as ever, her pistol trained on them, her eyes softened almost pityingly. Professor, you should have let me finish your lesson. Reeves's face twisted with rage. You betrayed everything you learned. Elinor's smile was cold. On the contrary, I perfected it. She raised her weapon. Sarah fired first. The shot tore through Elinor's shoulder, spinning her back into the mist. But Sarah knew it wasn't a kill. Elinor moved too smoothly, too deliberately. She would survive. She always did. Run. Reeves shouted. They bolted through the fog, weaving between containers as gunmen regrouped. Sarah's heart thundered. She couldn't tell if Reeves was leading her to safety or deeper into the trap. They burst into the open dockyard, the ocean yawning black and endless beyond the pylons. Old cranes loomed like skeletons against the moonlit sky. Reeves staggered, clutching his side. There's a tunnel, maintenance shaft under Dock 14. It leads out to the rail yard, if we can make it. His words cut off as a spotlight locked onto them. Gunmen closed in, forming a semicircle, rifles raised. Sarah shoved Reeves behind her, lifting her Glock though her magazine was nearly empty. Her options narrowed to one, fight until she couldn't, but then another voice cut through the night, clear, commanding. Hold your fire. From the fog, Elinor emerged once more, her arm wrapped in a makeshift bandage, her silenced pistol at her side. She looked like a queen addressing her soldiers. Detective Mitchell, she called. You've impressed me. Most crumble long before this, but your persistence, it's admirable. Sarah spat on the ground. Save your compliments. You're nothing but a murderer. Elinor's smile sharpened. No, I am order. The silent gun removes chaos from the world. Journalists who dig too deep. Judges who grow too curious. Even detectives who don't know when to quit. Her gaze flicked to the bulge of the blood manuscript beneath Sarah's coat. Give me the journals and I'll let Reeves live, maybe even you, for a while. Sarah's mind raced. Hand them over, and the truth vanished forever. Refuse, and Reeves would die in front of her. She felt the manuscript's weight pressing against her, heavier than any bulletproof vest. The hunter had become the hunted, and in that moment, she realized the truth Reeves hadn't dared put in his journals. Exposing the silent gun wasn't just dangerous, it was suicidal. Still, Sarah raised her chin, her voice steady. "You'll have to kill me first." Eleanor's smile didn't falter. She lifted her silenced pistol, her soldiers closing in. The night exploded in gunfire. Gunfire cracked across the Quincy docks like thunder stitched into the night. Detective Sarah Mitchell dove behind a stack of rusted barrels as bullets shredded the air. Beside her, Dr. Alan Reeves pressed flat against the concrete, his face pale, sweat beading on his brow. The blood manuscript dug into Sarah's ribs beneath her coat, heavier now than any weapon. It wasn't just evidence, it was a target. Across the dock, Eleanor Ward moved like a conductor guiding an orchestra of death. Her silenced pistol whispered with precision, while her soldiers unleashed volleys of lead. Her bandaged arm barely slowed her. If anything, the wound seemed to fuel her resolve. "You can't win this, detective." Eleanor's voice rang clear over the chaos. "The silent gun doesn't fall, it absorbs, it survives, always." Sarah gritted her teeth. "Not tonight." A bullet ricocheted off the barrel near her head, showering sparks. She returned fire, dropping one of the masked gunmen. Reeves scrambled closer, clutching her arm. "They're not here to kill you yet," he rasped. "They're here to take the journals. That's what matters." Sarah's mind raced. If Eleanor got her hands on the manuscript, the truth would vanish into the void of corruption forever. But keeping it meant staying alive long enough to get it out. Another burst of gunfire pinned them down. Reeves pointed desperately toward the pier. "The maintenance tunnel under Dock 14. We can still make it." Sarah shook her head. "Not with her between us and the water." Eleanor advanced through the smoke, her soldiers tightening their net. Her eyes glowed with something unnervingly calm, like she was already certain of victory. "You think exposing us will change anything?" she said, her voice almost tender. "We are the bloodstream of power itself. Cut us open, and the whole body dies. Do you really want that, detective?" Sarah's finger flexed on her Glock. "I want the truth." Suddenly, an idea struck her. Mad, reckless, but maybe their only chance. She ripped the blood manuscript from inside her coat and held it high in the floodlight. Pages fluttered like wings, words of blood and conspiracy spilling across the wind. "Is this what you want?" Sarah shouted, "Then come and take it." Eleanor's eyes sharpened. "Don't be foolish." But Sarah was already running, straight toward the pier, journals in hand. Reeves stumbled after her, shouting something lost in the roar of gunfire. The soldiers opened fire, their bullets chasing sparks across the concrete. Sarah darted between crates, lungs burning, the manuscript clutched tight. She could feel Eleanor behind her, closing in like a wolf. At the edge of the pier, the black Atlantic churned below, waves slapping against the pylons. Sarah turned, raising the manuscript over the water. "Back off," she screamed, "or it goes in." Eleanor stopped, 10 feet away, pistol aimed squarely at Sarah's chest. Her voice was low, deadly calm. "You won't destroy it. You've seen what's inside. You know it's too valuable." Sarah's hands shook, but she forced steel into her voice. "Not more valuable than Reeves or me." For the first time, Eleanor's composure cracked. A flicker of uncertainty passed through her eyes. That was enough. Sarah hurled the manuscript, not into the ocean, but into the shadowed water beneath the dock, where it wedged between beams. Eleanor's head snapped, tracking it instinctively. Sarah fired. The bullet struck Eleanor's pistol, wrenching it from her grip with a burst of sparks. Eleanor screamed, clutching her bleeding hand. Reeves surged forward with a rusted pipe, slamming it across the jaw of one of the soldiers. The dock erupted into chaos as Sarah grabbed Reeves's arm. "Run!" They scrambled for the maintenance shaft, an iron hatch half, hidden beneath crates. Sarah kicked it open, shoving Reeves inside before sliding down herself. Bullets clanged against the hatch as she slammed it shut. The tunnel was narrow, dripping with seawater, reeking of salt and oil. Their footsteps splashed through ankle-deep water as they staggered forward. Above, muffled shouts echoed, but no one followed immediately. Reeves wheezed beside her. "You saved it. The journals. They're hidden." Sarah panted. "Eleanor won't reach them without going for a swim." Reeves's face twisted. She will. She never stops. Sarah clenched her jaw. Then we end it before she gets the chance. They emerged in the skeletal remains of the old rail yard, moonlight slashing across twisted tracks and rusting boxcars. For a moment the night was silent save for their ragged breaths. Then, footsteps. Elinor stepped from the shadows, her pistol replaced, her green eyes burning with fury. Alone now. Her soldiers scattered or dead, but still dangerous. "You should have drowned when you had the chance," she hissed. Sarah squared her shoulders, Glock raised. Reeves stood behind her, trembling but resolute. "No more games," Sarah said. "This ends tonight." Elinor smiled, blood on her teeth. "Yes, detective, it does." She lunged. The two women clashed in the moonlight, gunfire and fists colliding between rusted trains. Sarah's Glock went skittering across the gravel. Elinor slammed into her, silenced pistol pressed to Sarah's temple. "You could have joined us," Elinor whispered. "You had the fire, the persistence, but you chose the losing side." Sarah spat blood into her face. "Maybe, but at least it's mine." She jammed her thumb into Elinor's wound. Elinor screamed, her grip faltering. Sarah twisted, wrenched the pistol free, and fired point blank. The silenced shot cracked through the yard. Elinor staggered back, shock flooding her eyes. She dropped to her knees, blood blooming dark across her chest. For the first time she looked. Human, fragile, echoes, never die, she rasped. Then she collapsed, the gravel swallowing her last breath. Silence fell heavy over the yard. Sarah lowered the pistol, her chest heaving, every muscle trembling. Reeves sagged against a rail post, his eyes wide with both relief and horror. "It's over," he whispered. Sarah looked down at Elinor's body, then toward the dark dock beyond. The blood manuscript still waited there, hidden but vulnerable. "No," Sarah said quietly, "it's just begun." 3 days later, Sarah stood on the roof of her apartment building. The city spread out below in a sprawl of neon and steel. In her hands lay the blood manuscript, retrieved, dried, preserved. She had copies hidden now, encrypted and scattered, waiting to be released if anything happened to her. But every time she flipped a page, her stomach tightened. The names inside weren't just history, they were power. Senators, CEO, police chiefs, judges, the silent gun wasn't dead. Elinor was just one voice in a choir that stretched across the nation. Sarah lit a cigarette, the smoke curling into the night. Somewhere out there, others were watching. Others were waiting. The echoes hadn't ended. They had only grown louder, and she was no longer sure if she was hunting them or if they were already hunting her. Please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.